So let's put this thing together. And I think we got to figure out how we got here. And I'm not talking about in this building at 5 o'clock. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how did we get here when it comes to the love thing, when it comes to Jesus Christ. Because Christmas is supposed to put a little love in your heart because you ain't had any all year. That's kind of the way it works. Okay, so you're supposed to love people that you, like, there's the heart. We'll talk about that. You're supposed to love people and then we get away. And you're supposed to love people that you don't normally would love, or you're supposed to care and you don't normally care, and it's supposed to happen. And so that's kind of what it is. And one of the things that Jesus brought to us is a God thing that kind of transcends everything that we do, because we're used to love in certain, like we used to feelings. We're used to love with feelings. We love with physical love, hugs, whatever. But it was always conditional with us. It was always conditional when it comes to love, when it comes to those things, because we would always it depended on something in order for me to continue to love, whether you did it right or I did it right, or if somebody did it right. But this is this kind of thing that happened when it came to Jesus Christ that changed everything, because he decided to put some kind of love here that hadn't been here before, and he was going to give it to us. He was going to show it to us, but we didn't know about it because it hadn't happened yet. We didn't know about it. Everybody talked about it, and we'll talk about that. But everybody talked about it, but it never happened until he showed up. And so we got to look at how the baby got to Bethlehem in just a minute. We got to look at that, because we didn't really understand the love thing. And then we were told all this stuff, that he was coming and the baby was coming and the light of the world was coming. We were told all of this. And so we have to look at that when it comes to, you got your outline with me. I want you to look at it with me. I'm going to see if I can get it back here to where it's supposed to be. We're going to look at this one right here. A light is shining, can you see? So this is what it's telling us. A light is shining, can you see it? The people who walked in the darkness have seen a great light. Those who dwell in the land of deep darkness, on them has shone a light. A light has shone. Now let me say this real quick. This whole thing was put together by God to start with. And so we have this Christmas season, and we have the Bethlehem story, and then but that's not where it ends. We know that. But right now we're just going to do Bethlehem, and we're just going to do Christmas, and we're just going to get to that. And so that's what we got to do. We got to get to that. So we end up in Isaiah, and he starts talking about this light. Now this is 600 years before this happened. You know, we created Christmas trees and we created presents. And I will say this. Even when it comes to Easter, this is the one time a year that people are open to God. And we need to talk about that at the end of this. We need to talk about that. People are they're open to God. I can get people together and families together who don't get together all year long, and they'll show up for a candlelight service. And in that moment, and this is why the Christmas thing that we do this year, in that moment they show up, God opens that window, and I have a small window where the Holy Spirit, I can say this or do this or sing that or say that, or you say something or you do something. And then that window opens and they accept Jesus Christ in their life. That's how it works. That's how it works. So we know that everybody's open to this, that everybody's open to this Christmas season. And then we have to go back to how did we get here, because it's really interesting. So we got to go back because God decided to do something because we chose something else. So when it comes to put a little love in your heart, let me help you real quick. The only people that were going to heaven were the Jews. At one time, this was the only way, they were the only ones going. So this is before the baby, and Jesus shows up and changes everything. Let me help you. If you're not a Jew, you would be a Gentile, in which he said that all people would be able to go to heaven. This is that love that we did not understand. So here we are looking at what he is going to do is going to create a nation. Now this nation is going to be wild. This is a wild nation. This isn't, I think you want to believe that when they all started out that everybody was good and we're just going to keep the path. These people, these Jews, they turned on God all the time. They ended up in slavery all the time. God's got to keep it together. He's got to keep it together because of us. and the plan. He's got the plan that this light is going to be born one day. Now, everything's got to line up just perfectly, and that's what it takes a little bit of time. So we're 600 years out, and we got to get these people, which we call Jews, we got to get them moved toward Bethlehem. Now, there's going to be death, and there's going to be slaves, and there's going to be miracles, and God's going to do this, and God's going to do that. God's going to pretty much take care of them so that you could be here at 5 o'clock on a Sunday night. So we have Abraham coming through, and then he's got to create this thing called a lineage. You got to know this, because this isn't the only time that your Christianity and your salvation got down to one child. This is not the only time. Now, you don't know the story, but I'm going to tell you the story in just a minute. So we have this thing called the lineage of David. So he's going to start this thing where there's a bloodline that will help you. So there's a bloodline coming from David. So he's already created the nation. He gave them the 10 Commandments because they didn't know what they were doing. You know how that works. So he gave them some rules. He said, y'all try this. And that didn't work either. It didn't work for you. Do you know that nobody can keep the 10 Commandments? I haven't met anybody yet. And that might all tell you why the baby has to be born in Bethlehem, because you can't do it on your own. You can't make this journey by yourself. So this is what he's thinking. So he's creating this. I got to have some kind of way I got to keep a lineage and a line and a bloodline pure. So you'll hear things. He says, I don't want you to be like other nations, because we got to keep this together. I don't want you to do what they do. I don't want you to worship anybody but me. And he put that in the 10 Commandments. And they were worshiping a lot of different gods. Why? That's what they saw. That's the way they were raised. They were in slavery. They saw this happen. And then it keeps moving. I think that's the hard thing for us to remember, that there was this plan coming, that God's going to put this thing together so that you and I could have this moment, which we're having right now. So I could even talk about it. So he's put it together. So we know that it happened. So we have this thought coming in. And you got to listen to this. So this is not the only time we got down to one child. This is not the only time. And the Christmas story would have never happened if this didn't take place. Now, this is where God moves in. It's almost like the Game of Thrones. If you ever watched that, I'm not sure if I should be talking about that. Let's talk about something else then. Let's watch the kings and queens and the royalty, and how the lineage and how the bloodline was so important that you had to be a part of this and a part of that. If you were a Pharaoh, listen to this, you better watch your back. If you're a Caesar, you better watch your back. So this wasn't, oh, I love to be king, I love to be queen. No, you're in trouble. You got to watch it all the time. And this is that kind of story that's happening right now, that's coming down. Remember, we're down to Bethlehem, but we're not there yet. And we still haven't got there. And God's trying to keep the lineage of David pure and keep it solid so that we can get to Bethlehem. And we got to get to Mary. Remember Mary? Mary's got to get in that too. So we got to keep this thing going. But we had a problem. You see, everybody wouldn't do what they're supposed to do. You would read the Bible and you think, well, these people should know better. Do you know better? We know better, but we don't act right. And so they wasn't acting right. So we got two kingdoms. Let's do this thing. So we got two kingdoms. We got a northern and a southern kingdom. Now, one of them is in with God. One of them is in with God. And the other kingdom's not in with God. But we got to keep peace between the kingdoms. And then we have these people, and I'm going to throw some names out. You've heard of Jezebel. Don't be a Jezebel. You remember that? See, Jezebel introduced Baal worship, idol worship, and it just messed up the kingdom. They introduced this in the kingdom where this is God's supposed to be the God of all, and they know this. And then this king, Jezebel, convinces the king, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that. Then we have this big fire and everybody blows up. And guess what? Jezebel had a daughter. And you would think you want your children to do better than you. Well, she did. And it wasn't good. So here we have this daughter. Now what happened was, how do we keep peace between the kingdoms? How do we do this? Just like Game of Thrones stuff. Well, let's arrange a marriage. Let's take the kingdom of good and the kingdom of bad, and let's put them together and see who wins. So Athaliah was Jezebel's daughter, and she was more ruthless than Jezebel. So here's this story. Now listen to this. And you're trying to get to Bethlehem and put up a tree. That's kind of where you are right now. We're in this Christmas thing. We got all these Christmas carols, and it's just wonderful. And I got chocolate. I don't need any more chocolate right now. I'm good right now. I'll let you know. I have a supplier here. I'll let you know. But I'm telling you, this is about to get ugly. So we have a king that died. She marries the other king. They put the two kingdoms together. And it wasn't too long after that the king that she married actually died. I wonder how this happens. How does this take place? By natural causes? No, probably not. This is a Netflix. It's what it's coming out. I'm telling you. And here you are. We have this queen who killed this king. And now guess what? She is now queen. You know what she's worried about? Her relatives. We got to get rid of the relatives. Can you imagine this? We got to get rid of the grandkids. And you think that didn't happen. Oh, it happened. Cousins, grandkids, anybody in line to that throne, they went after them, killed them all. Killed them all. This was the lineage of David that was being created so that we could get, remember, to Bethlehem. Remember? We're trying to get to Bethlehem. So now we have this queen who's trying, this is always happening. I'm trying to get rid of the lineage of David, and I'm supposed to be queen. Well, not really, but I'm going to be queen. And they got everybody except one. And you're going to be grateful for the one. This was a little boy. He was probably 3 years old. He was the grandchild, heir to the throne. So they decided, if you will watch some of these movies, they did this all the time. They would hide the future queens and kings. They'd hide them so nobody could get to them. They sent them away. So they decided to do something. The aunt and the uncle, they were men and women of God, and they took care of the temple, and they knew that Athaliah would never go to church. So they took that little boy and they hid him in the temple. Hid him away. His name was Joash. Hid him in the temple. Years go by, and she's ruthless. She's killing everybody. If you were even close to being kin to her, you were going to die. You better get out. So they waited. And they waited. And he finally turned 7 years old. Now, I don't know how this works. The 7-year-olds I've met, they really can't even get out of the bed. So now we have a 7-year-old. We have a 7-year-old that has got to be king, and there's got to be a coup. You saw this on TV, right? There got to be a coup. So they arrange this thing for Athaliah doesn't know it's going to happen. Now, this is Faith. I told you this is Faith's favorite story. Athaliah will kill you. That was the whole story. I didn't quite do it quite this way. She did like some of the blood and gut stuff that I won't tell you about. But it was some tough stuff. So they set up this thing. They're going to have like a dinner, or they're going to lure her in somehow. And then Joash is going to come walking in, and they're going to have the captains and the guards, and they got all these people. The aunt and uncle got everybody together, and they come in that door, and they announce Joash, 7-year-old, he's the rightful heir to the throne, and you're not. What do you think happened to Athaliah? Well, they took her right out. And they took care of her. Right there. This got down to one boy. God protected the lineage of David. I think sometimes you think there's a lot of this and there's a lot of these. But this was one. If he didn't do what he was supposed to do, you would not have a way. So they hit him. And he became king. And he began to do what kings do. He's 7 years old. He reigned for 40 years. At 7 years old, can you imagine? And you have to ask that question, what's in a name? And it's on your outline. So what is in a name? So there's a lot to this, what's in a name. And we're going to give you some names in a minute. This bloodline was important. Now he was told, now this is something we're going to have to look at. He was told, he was prophesied, this is what you're going to be. This is what you're going to be. And I'll read this to you, Isaiah 9:6. This is what he's going to be. For unto us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and who will be called. This is what he's going to do. He's going to be a wonderful counselor. He's going to be mighty God, strong, everlasting Father. He'll never leave you, and the Prince of Peace, and he will give you peace. This is what he was told he was going to do, and he was going to be born in Bethlehem, and this was going to happen. Has anybody ever had this is really interesting. We were here when Redemption came in the building, and we were here on Sunday morning, and they did something called, they prophesied over me. And what it means is, it's not so much as that he can tell the future or you can tell the future, but it's saying this is what I see could happen. You see, some of you are living out of prophecy. This is really what you have to think about. Have you ever been told you'll never amount to anything? Did you live that one out? You see, that's the hard part. See, let me say this for all the grandmas, grandpas, and moms and dads. Be careful what you say to your children. Be real careful. So we have a prophecy that says this is what could happen. Now, we have a human condition. This is why Jesus came, because we have a human condition. Is that we really can't get anything right. And the other part of that is, the good part is that God doesn't make us follow him. He doesn't make us say, you got to love me, you got to do what I tell you to do. You get to choose that. This is where that love, that incredible love came from. That is like, how does it transcends anything we know. And I don't think you will ever understand it, and I will ever understand exactly how that works. I'm going to love you no matter what you do. It sounds like children. It sounds like you say that to your kids. But that's still tough, isn't it? It's still tough. You can turn your back on me, I'll still love you. You can be a Hitler, and I will still love you. I don't like that one. I mean, you could name it. And see, this is where that love thing came in. Here, listen to this. You don't have to be what you were told you were going to be. This is the good part. You don't have to be what you were told you were going to be. You can be something else. How many times did God change his mind? You ever thought about that? He's changed his mind several times. You know why? Because of the human condition. Jonah goes to Nineveh. He says, you're all going to die. He loved it. He didn't want to do it. So when he got there, he said, you're just going to all die. Because he didn't like them. Listen to this. He didn't like them. He ran from God. I don't like you. I don't care. I don't even know why God sent me. I don't even care. If you don't turn, he just told me to tell you this. If you don't turn from your ways, you're all going to die. You know what happened? They all turned from their ways, and Jonah hated it. And God spared them because of the human condition. What is God looking for? He loves you. This is the hardest part for us. This wonderful counselor, mighty God, that's all for you and for me. That's the Christmas story. That's where all of that comes from. That's that Christmas story. And I wonder if, let me ask this real quick. So, let's say that you have somebody you would really want to know Jesus Christ and want to change their world. So what are you saying about that? You see, this is where that what do you want to happen? You speak it. This is why words are important and it's very powerful, and you got to be careful what you say. You'll never make it. You'll never amount to anything. You got to be careful. Yeah, you're going to make it. You're going to amount to a lot because your holy Father, your Father in heaven sent His Son Jesus Christ. He died for you because you are worth something more than you ever will know. More than you'll ever know. I'm amazed at the love that I still don't understand. I'm still amazed about it. And if I wanted somebody to be in this place or anywhere to know God, what would you say? How would you prophesy that? Would you speak it? I think of my brother Alan. He's doing better, by the way. You don't know the story, just know he's better. Okay? So I told him one day, now, I'm not an angel. I used to think I was, but now I know I'm not. And so I told him, I said, one day you're going to find God. One day you're going to find God. How many years was that? That was like 100 years in my life. That's what it felt like. But he did. Was it because of me? I don't think it was because of me. I'm just saying, I said that you're going to find God. It creates an awareness on our end that I'm paying attention because God's always working and moving. And sometimes you give up so quick. You give up so quick. Can you imagine God giving up? I'm not worth it. Can you imagine the thousands of years, the hundreds of years? I'm trying to keep this line pure. I'm trying to get a baby to Bethlehem, not because you can put up a tree, but because you can have salvation. That's why I'm doing it. He had another tree in mind. This is an amazing love story that sometimes we miss when it comes to the Christmas. Then it gets down to this one baby. Look at your outline. It says, how long will this last? How long will this last? This will be something, how long will it last? Because everything it doesn't last long here. Things move quick. Things change. People come and go. But see, we latched onto something that's not going to go away. This wonderful counselor, mighty God, all those things, that was for you. We're not going to go away. He said this, of the increase of his government, watch this, and the peace, there will be no end. What is the government? Let me help you. Kingdom. Will that help you? The increase of his kingdom. What is he talking about? He's talking about us. He's talking about you. He's talking about 5 o'clock somewhere at Marathon. That's what he's talking about. This is why you can't ever quit. You can't ever give up. You can never stop. You always believe. You always hope. This is what happens. Because he says this will always increase. This will increase and the peace will be no end. And the throne of David, this is what we just talked about, over his kingdom to establish and uphold with justice, with the righteousness from this time forth and forevermore, from this moment on and forevermore. This will never change. Listen to this. His love for us is for now and forevermore. And it will never, ever change. And let me say this. No matter what you think or what you do or how mad you get, he's going to love you. That's not like from here. This is just amazing stuff. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will do this. In other words, my power will make this happen. But I got to get to Bethlehem. The whole Old Testament, there's all kinds of stories in there. And we read the stories, and we love the stories, all kinds of stories in there. But every bit of it was to get to Bethlehem. Every bit of it. The New Testament is saying this is how we love. This is how we do this. This is how we care. This is how we love. This is what God does. This is it. And that's what he was telling us all the way through this. He was telling us over and over how he was going to love us, how he was going to care, and what he was going to do. And he showed it to us all the way through. You ever thought, what if you were the last hope for somebody? Don't put that on me, Ricky Bobby. Don't put that on me. I'm just telling you, you're important. I'm just telling you, you're important. We're all important in this thing. So let me ask you this. If we're going to do this, here's what I have done. I bought 200 candles because we can't use wax in here because we've tried that before and it's a mess. Amen. If you had to clean it up. So I bought 200 candles and I'd like to give them all out on December 22nd at 5 o'clock. That'd be really cool, wouldn't it? Now, with those 200 candles come 400 batteries. You're welcome to help me with that. But here, listen to this. But who would you say, if there was going to be a prophecy or prophesied from you, who would you get here? And would you tell them? Because you're already thinking, they're never going to come to nothing. They're never. Okay, well, that's not going to. Of course they're not. You just told them you're not coming. I'm going to make it real easy for you. I'm going to send out all these invitations to your phone. I sent out 3,400 and something text messages Saturday. But that ain't nothing compared to what it means for you to do it. Now, you know, we got a lot of interesting responses from that text message. I'll tell you. Some people were really happy. And some were not. And we can't use the words. I told Roy, I said, just move them, take them off. But I'm saying, I want, you know, when you hit that button, this was straight. Me and Roy went over this. It was Saturday, I think it was Saturday afternoon. After the ball game, of course. I hit that, and I'm going to, listen, a little bit, watch this. You're going to send out a message. You're going to send out a message that's going to go to 3,400 people with your face on it. Wow, I'm going to hit that button. And this is what I pray. Dear God, help me take whatever comes and bang. See, that's what you got to get. You got to get in your head too. You have people that you know need Jesus Christ. So you got to do something.